My beloved child. Listen carefully and stay with me, because what you are about to hear was hidden from you for a very long time, not because you were weak, but because the truth has weight, and not everyone is ready to carry it. From the outside, your life looked ordinary, predictable, even calm, but beneath that surface, quiet decisions were being made, conversations were happening without your name being spoken out loud, and paths were being redirected without your consent. You felt it in moments of silence that lasted too long, in pauses during conversations where something should have been said but never was, and in the strange heaviness that visited you at night when nothing seemed wrong yet nothing felt right either. This is not imagination. This is not coincidence. This is the slow pressure of a truth that has been circling you, waiting for the exact moment when you would be strong enough to face it without breaking. You have reached that moment now. Do not rush. Do not panic. The truth does not arrive to destroy you. It arrives to free you, even if freedom feels uncomfortable at first. Everything you are about to understand connects pieces from your past that never made sense before, and once you see how they fit together, you will realize why certain doors closed, why some people changed without explanation, and why your intuition kept whispering warnings you tried to ignore. This is not about blame. This is about clarity. And clarity always changes everything. Stay with me, because the first layer of this truth is not dramatic or loud, but quiet and deeply unsettling. Someone close to you knew more than they ever admitted. They saw the full picture long before you did, and instead of bringing the truth to you, they chose comfort, avoidance, or fear. They told themselves they were protecting you, but in reality, they were protecting themselves from the consequences of honesty. This is why certain answers never came when you asked simple questions. This is why explanations felt incomplete, rehearsed, or strangely vague. You were not crazy for sensing that something was missing. You were sensing restraint. You were sensing someone holding back information that could have changed your decisions much earlier. Think back to moments when you almost spoke up but stopped, when you almost confronted someone but convinced yourself to wait. That hesitation was not weakness. It was your awareness colliding with someone else's silence. The truth is, some people benefit when you remain unsure. Your doubt keeps situations stable for them. Your clarity forces change, and change is uncomfortable for those who rely on control. This is why the truth was delayed, softened, or wrapped in half-explanations. But here is the part you must understand clearly. Their silence did not stop the truth from existing. It only delayed your access to it. And now that access is opening, whether they are ready or not. Now listen even more closely, because this next part explains why your life took turns that never fully felt like your choice. There was a moment, a critical point in time, when a decision involving you was made without you being present. It may not have been framed as betrayal. It may have been called a practical choice, a necessary adjustment, or a temporary solution. But the result was permanent redirection. Opportunities shifted. Relationships evolved in unnatural ways. Certain paths quietly disappeared while others were placed in front of you as if they were the only options available. You adapted because that is what you do. You survived because that is your nature. But deep down, you always sensed that you were living a version of life that was slightly off from what was meant for you. That feeling was accurate. Someone else's fear, convenience, or hidden agenda interfered with your timeline. This does not mean your life was ruined. It means it was rerouted. And rerouted paths still lead somewhere powerful, especially when the person walking them finally understands why the detour happened. The truth you are learning now does not exist to make you angry. It exists to give you back ownership of your story. Once you see where the interference happened, you regain the ability to choose differently moving forward. That is real power. Take a breath, because the emotional weight of this truth is heavy, but it is also validating. You were not overreacting. You were not too sensitive. You were not imagining distance, tension, or unspoken conflict. You were responding to information that your mind could not access but your intuition could feel. This is why certain connections drained you instead of nourishing you. This is why you felt responsible for fixing situations that were never yours to fix. Someone allowed you to carry emotional weight that belonged to them. They watched you struggle with uncertainty while holding clarity they refused to share. This realization can sting, but do not let it harden you. Let it sharpen you. Awareness does not require bitterness. It requires boundaries. You are allowed to step back. You are allowed to reassess people, situations, and promises based on what you know now. The truth changes the rules of engagement. You no longer have to overextend yourself for those who benefited from your confusion. You no longer have to explain your instincts to people who dismissed them when it mattered most. This is the moment where self-trust replaces self-doubt. And once that shift happens, your entire energy changes. Finally, understand this, because it is the most important part of all. The truth did not come to you randomly, and it did not come too late. It arrived precisely when you were ready to act on it rather than collapse under it. Everything that felt like delay was preparation. Everything that felt like loss was refinement. You are standing at the edge of a different phase now, one where you no longer move blindly or rely on incomplete narratives. The people who expected you to stay unaware will feel the shift first. They will sense your clarity before you speak a word. Do not announce your awakening. Let your decisions speak. Let your boundaries communicate. Let your calm confidence unsettle those who depended on your silence. You do not need revenge. You do not need confrontation. You need alignment. And alignment begins with truth. Stay grounded. Stay observant. This is only the beginning. The deeper layers are coming, and when they do, you will understand why everything had to unfold exactly this way. My beloved child. Do not look away now, because what unfolds next explains why certain people grew uneasy around your growth, even when they smiled and pretended to support you. There was a silent comparison happening in the background, one you were never invited into, where your potential was measured against their comfort. Every time you evolved, questioned, or became more aware, it disrupted an unspoken balance. Some individuals preferred the version of you that was uncertain, adaptable, and willing to compromise endlessly. That version was easier to predict. Easier to guide. Easier to keep within limits they never openly admitted existed. This is why encouragement sometimes came with subtle discouragement. This is why praise was often followed by hesitation. You were never wrong for wanting more clarity, more honesty, more depth. You were simply outgrowing the version of reality others designed around you. And when someone outgrows a controlled narrative, the first reaction from those who benefited is quiet resistance. Not loud opposition. Not confrontation. Just enough doubt planted to slow you down. You felt this resistance as confusion, as mixed signals, as moments where things almost made sense but never fully aligned. That feeling was not failure. It was friction between who you were becoming and who others needed you to remain. Stay present, because now you must understand the emotional mechanism that kept you patient for so long. Hope. Hope is powerful, but when it is fed incomplete information, it becomes a leash instead of a light. You were given just enough reassurance to keep you waiting. Just enough warmth to stop you from walking away. Just enough explanation to quiet your questions without answering them. This was not accidental. It was a pattern. A pattern that relied on your empathy, your understanding nature, and your willingness to see the good even when evidence was missing. You told yourself that timing was off, that circumstances were complicated, that clarity would come later. And later kept moving further away. The truth is, some people rely on hope because it delays accountability. As long as you were hoping, you were not demanding. As long as you were patient, you were not changing direction. This does not mean they intended harm. It means they chose ease over honesty. And ease always has a cost. That cost was paid by you, in emotional energy, in time, and in moments where you doubted your own instincts. Recognizing this is not about regret. It is about reclaiming authority over what you allow moving forward. Now let me reveal something subtle but deeply important. While some people withheld truth, others observed you silently, noticing your resilience, your adaptability, and your ability to remain kind even when clarity was absent. Not everyone around you misunderstood your silence. Some recognized it as strength in restraint. These observers did not intervene because they knew interference would only repeat the same pattern of decision-making without your consent. Instead, they waited for you to arrive at awareness on your own. This is why certain connections felt unexpectedly grounding. Why some conversations, even brief ones, felt honest without effort. These moments were reminders that truth does not always need force. It needs readiness. You are entering a phase where discernment replaces tolerance. You will feel less inclined to explain yourself and more inclined to protect your peace. This shift is natural. It is the result of accumulated understanding finally settling into confidence. You are no longer searching for validation. You are recognizing alignment. Do not be surprised if the energy around you begins to change. When awareness sharpens, masks slip without being challenged. People reveal themselves through reaction rather than words. Some will grow distant. Some will suddenly seek reassurance. Some may attempt to rewrite the past or soften what actually happened. Observe without absorbing. You are not required to correct every narrative. Truth does not need defense when it is fully seen by the one who matters most. You. This is where emotional maturity replaces emotional urgency. You will feel calmer, even as clarity deepens. That calm is not indifference. It is stability. It is the internal shift from seeking answers externally to trusting the ones that arise within you. Your decisions will feel quieter but firmer. Your boundaries will feel natural rather than forced. This is the evidence that you are integrating the truth rather than reacting to it. Remember this as you move forward, because it will anchor you. The truth does not demand immediate action. It invites intentional movement. You are allowed to take time. You are allowed to observe patterns repeating and choose not to engage. You are allowed to step into spaces where transparency is not negotiated but expected. What once felt confusing will now feel obvious in hindsight. That does not mean you were blind before. It means you were becoming. And becoming is rarely comfortable. The next layer will reveal how this truth reshapes your future choices, not through dramatic upheaval, but through quiet certainty. Stay with me. The story is far from over. My beloved child. Now the truth moves deeper, into the part that explains why your emotions felt heavier than the situations themselves. You were not only responding to what was happening in front of you, but also to what was deliberately left unsaid. Silence has weight. Unanswered questions create pressure. And over time, that pressure settles inside the heart as self-doubt, exhaustion, and quiet resignation. You carried emotional tension that was never named, never acknowledged, yet constantly present. This is why moments of calm still felt unsettled. This is why even good days felt incomplete. You were living with unresolved information, and the human mind does not rest when pieces are missing. Someone knew that clarity would empower you, so instead of giving it, they allowed ambiguity to linger. Not out of cruelty, but out of fear of what your clarity would change. Understand this clearly. Your emotional fatigue was not weakness. It was the result of sustained uncertainty imposed from the outside. And now that you can see this, you can finally stop blaming yourself for feeling tired of situations you could never fully understand. Pay attention to what happens next, because awareness changes behavior before it changes circumstances. You will notice yourself pausing where you once rushed to explain. You will notice yourself listening without absorbing. You will notice a quiet detachment forming, not because you care less, but because you see more. This is the stage where emotional reactions soften and inner authority strengthens. People may sense this shift and feel unsettled by it. They may ask what changed. They may say you feel distant. What changed is not your heart. What changed is your tolerance for confusion. You are no longer willing to trade peace for partial truth. This is not selfishness. This is self-respect forming its shape. You are learning that access to you is not automatic. It is earned through honesty, consistency, and clarity. This realization alone alters the direction of your life more than any dramatic confrontation ever could. Now understand this subtle truth, because it explains the timing of everything. If you had known all of this earlier, you might have reacted from emotion rather than wisdom. You might have confronted, accused, or acted impulsively. That would have kept you tied to the same cycle, just in a louder form. Instead, time allowed you to mature emotionally. Time allowed you to strengthen internally. So when the truth finally arrived, it did not shatter you. It clarified you. This is why you feel more calm than angry, more aware than reactive. This is why the truth feels heavy but not overwhelming. You are meeting it as someone who can carry it. This was never about protecting others from your reaction. It was about protecting you from responding before you were ready to choose differently. Readiness changes everything. Observe how your perspective on the past begins to shift. Moments that once confused you will now feel obvious. Conversations that felt strange will suddenly make sense. Patterns will emerge where you once saw randomness. This does not mean the past was wasted. It means it was instructional. You were learning discernment through experience rather than explanation. And that kind of learning stays with you permanently. You will not repeat the same dynamics blindly again. You will notice early signs. You will feel when clarity is being delayed. You will recognize when comfort is being prioritized over truth. This awareness is quiet, but it is powerful. It makes you selective, not suspicious. Intentional, not closed. You are not building walls. You are building filters. Hold this final thought gently, because it prepares you for what comes next. The truth you now carry is not meant to isolate you. It is meant to align you. As you move forward, you will naturally gravitate toward spaces, conversations, and connections where honesty is natural, not negotiated. Where silence does not hide meaning. Where clarity is not feared. This transition will feel subtle on the outside, but profound on the inside. You are not leaving people behind. You are leaving confusion behind. And when confusion leaves, peace follows. The next part will reveal how this shift begins to reshape your future in ways you cannot yet fully see. Stay steady. Stay aware. The deeper clarity is unfolding. My beloved child. Now the truth reaches the point where it stops being only about understanding and starts becoming about choice. Awareness alone changes nothing unless it is followed by a different way of moving. You are beginning to realize that clarity does not ask for permission. It quietly rearranges priorities. The things you once chased start to feel less urgent. The things you once tolerated start to feel unnecessary. This is not because you have become cold or detached, but because your inner compass has recalibrated. You are no longer driven by the need to prove, convince, or wait. You are driven by alignment. And alignment feels calm, firm, and unshakable. This is the stage where your energy becomes selective. Not everyone will have access to your thoughts, your time, or your emotional investment anymore. That is not arrogance. That is wisdom forming boundaries without noise. There is something else you must understand clearly. When you stop accepting partial truth, you unintentionally expose it. People who relied on ambiguity will begin to feel uncomfortable around you. Not because you accuse them, but because your presence no longer supports the illusion they maintained. They may test you with familiar patterns. Delayed responses. Vague reassurances. Soft promises with no substance. Watch closely. You will notice that these patterns no longer hook you emotionally. Where you once waited, you now observe. Where you once explained, you now pause. This shift is powerful because it requires no confrontation. It allows people to reveal their intentions through consistency or lack of it. Truth does not always need words. Behavior speaks louder when you are finally listening without attachment. Now focus on what is changing inside you, because this is where the real transformation is happening. You are beginning to trust your first response instead of questioning it. You are beginning to feel peace where you once felt obligation. This is the moment when self-respect replaces self-sacrifice. You will notice that you no longer feel guilty for choosing yourself. That guilt belonged to a version of you that survived by accommodating others. The version of you emerging now thrives by honoring inner truth. This does not make you less compassionate. It makes your compassion intentional rather than automatic. You give where there is reciprocity. You stay where there is transparency. You step back where there is confusion. This is emotional maturity settling into place. Do not be surprised if certain connections begin to fade without conflict. Distance will grow naturally where alignment no longer exists. Some people will not understand this change because they were accustomed to your availability, not your clarity. Let them misunderstand. You are not required to remain accessible to be valuable. Your worth was never created by how much you tolerated. It was always inherent. You are simply no longer negotiating it. This phase may feel lonely at moments, but it is not isolation. It is transition. And transitions often feel quiet because they happen internally before they reflect externally. Trust this stillness. It is not emptiness. It is space being created for something more honest. Carry this truth with steadiness, because it will guide your next steps. You are not here to chase closure or explanations. You are here to choose peace over confusion. Your future will be shaped less by what you demand and more by what you no longer accept. This is where your power becomes subtle but undeniable. Stay grounded. Stay observant. The next layer will reveal how this inner shift begins to alter your external reality in ways that feel almost effortless. The truth has done its work. Now it is teaching you how to live differently. My beloved child. This is where the truth stops feeling like information and starts feeling like direction. You may notice that decisions which once felt complicated are now becoming simple, not because the choices are easier, but because your tolerance for inner conflict has ended. You no longer debate yourself endlessly. You no longer search for signs outside when your inner knowing is already clear. This clarity did not arrive suddenly. It was built quietly through every moment you stayed present despite confusion, every time you listened even when answers were incomplete, and every time you chose calm over reaction. Now that clarity stands in front of you, steady and undeniable. It is guiding you away from noise and toward intention. This is why you feel less urgency to explain yourself. Your actions are aligning with your truth, and alignment does not require validation. There is a subtle shift happening in how the world responds to you, even if you have not named it yet. When your energy becomes grounded in truth, situations rearrange themselves without effort. Some doors close gently instead of slamming. Some opportunities appear without struggle. This is not coincidence. It is resonance. You are no longer matching confusion, so confusion can no longer stay close to you. You are no longer responding to mixed signals, so mixed signals lose their power. People who meet you now will sense your presence differently. They may feel clarity around you, or they may feel exposed by it. Both reactions are revealing. You do not need to manage them. Your role is simply to remain consistent with what you know. Consistency is the language of self-respect. Notice how your emotional responses are changing. Where you once felt compelled to fix misunderstandings, you now allow space for truth to surface on its own. Where you once felt responsible for others' comfort, you now prioritize internal peace. This does not make you distant. It makes you anchored. Anchored people do not drift with every emotional wave. They choose when to engage and when to remain still. This stillness is not passivity. It is strength that does not need display. You are learning that not every realization requires a reaction. Some realizations are meant to recalibrate your future quietly. This is one of them. As you integrate this truth further, you may feel moments of reflection where the past revisits you, not with pain, but with understanding. You will see how every delay refined your discernment. How every unanswered question strengthened your intuition. How every moment of uncertainty taught you to rely on yourself rather than external reassurance. This understanding does not trap you in the past. It releases you from it. You are no longer trying to rewrite what happened. You are using what happened to choose differently now. This is wisdom. And wisdom always moves forward, never backward. Hold on to this awareness as you step into what comes next. The truth has not arrived to disrupt your life. It has arrived to align it. From this point on, you will feel less pulled and more guided. Less reactive and more intentional. Less attached to outcomes and more committed to inner clarity. This is the foundation of the next phase of your journey. Stay steady. Stay aware. The truth has prepared you. Now it will begin to work through you.